I feel like I heard a boo as well, but that's okay. Failure is a part of this. Don't worry, friends. Anyone else enjoy seeing massive photos of themselves in the top? No, me either. But welcome to my talk. Right, very quick one, just to calm me down, really. So who am I? I'm Chris, you noticed. I've been testing since 2004. I'm a testing peer. You're all my testing peers, but we have a podcast called Testing Peers. Szilard is our #1 evangelist. Speak to him if you want to learn any more of our podcast. We speak about testing, quality, leadership, those sorts of important things in our lives as testers. I'm also in 9 out of 10 testers. Nice little ranting group of friends about testing topics and things that drive us a bit mad. I'm an avid explorer of the world, my own sanity, and software. And I love Eurovision. Thank you. I love Cambridge United. Yes. 1 point all season, friends. And I love pro wrestling. It's pretty flawed though, right? Pretty broken. That's me. Thank you for indulging. The calm will come. So, my talk's about the pursuit of failure. Now, as a tester, I found my life is about trying to find the right balance wherever I am. Whether that's risk and quality, introvert, extrovert. Right now I am swinging between introvert and extrovert in front of all of you. And as testers, maybe if we're leading into leadership roles, we have this real struggle to balance between the holistic picture, the strategy, the big picture, the clients, and then the actual granular levels. How do things work? How do we affect change at that small level? It's tricky. And then finally, failure and success. And that's where I really want to focus today's talk, because it's been relevant for pretty much the entirety of my career. When I joined testing, I didn't realize I was going to stay. All my role was about finding failures, telling people that they'd done stuff that was rubbish. I didn't appreciate it. You failed. Everything's going to go wrong. We're going to lose money. It's your fault. It's like a power trip almost, isn't it? You gatekeep. You're like, you can't do that. So this was my idea of testing. I found bugs. I stopped the crap going into production, all by myself, obviously. I was opposed to developers. Actually, where I worked, we were on an old farm site. And the testers, we were in the old cattle shed. We weren't allowed to have the same lunch breaks as the developers. We couldn't talk to them apart from through a bug tracking system. So the system kind of really led us to only talk about failures with the developers. We didn't have any relationship. Who's seen this one? I've got to tell you, friends, that's fun. It's not actually helpful. It doesn't actually help shape quality, and it doesn't help me. I was lucky that I actually just said yes to an opportunity one day to actually join a studio in the games company I was working. And I suddenly got to move from just being the guy that said no, said you're rubbish, you're failing, you're bringing this down, to actually affecting quality and advocating for it rather than just saying, it's a bit crap, isn't it? And so I found myself suddenly going, I don't like it when people tell me I'm rubbish. Maybe other people don't like it either. I actually thought about doing a podcast called Quality Shift, by the way. It's quite a nice idea. Instead, I did one where I talk with friends about testing instead. So, I have a quote for you, friends. Oh, yes. Turns out Thomas Edison wasn't actually a particularly wonderful man, if you want to read a bit more about Tesla and such, but he appreciated there's value in failure. Failure equals information, doesn't it? If I get something right first time, do you know what I think? It's not good, and it's probably not right. There's a learning opportunity every time something fails. And I sort of landed on the fact that it's the way that we talk about stuff. We communicate as testers all the time. Whether that's bug tracking, whether that's me coming along and saying there's conflict. A lot of these things here, Bananarama, they knew where it was at. It ain't what you do. It's the way that you do it. And so as testers, one of our most important traits is to understand context. Why is it like this? What happened? What are we trying to achieve? Now, as a consultant, very often I find myself coming along to place and my reflex says, I've seen this before. I know what you've done. I, Mr. Consultant, I know how to fix it. You watch. But I have to bite my tongue. I have to say no. I have to listen. I have to understand why you are where you're at. We talked about culture earlier in Anne-Marie's talk. When Anne-Marie joined, I doubt she came in and just said, forget everything, friends. I'm here. But the way we talk about things, the way we build relationships is so important. The way we interact with friends, with colleagues, with potential enemies, we have to work with them. If I came in and just said everything is terrible, everything is bad, and I'm the best, I might not get many friends, I might not make a lot of progress. I probably won't be kept in my role. So, do you think I got it right first time when I discovered that we have to change our language? No, Alex. Do you think I get it wrong most times? Yeah. Because there was a bit of wisdom that the great Ted Lasso shared with us. You may laugh, but he's a very wise man. He says, different people are different people. What that means is we're wired differently. We hear things differently. We perceive things differently. Also, we've got something called a life that exists outside of the office, outside factors that might just affect things. If we don't know the people that we are working with, if they don't know what we're dealing with, how can we truly be effective testers? Humans in the workplace. We have to try things, and we have to accept that we don't know everything. Does anyone here know everything? You come and talk to me after the talk. We have to actually work in a world where even if we plan to the nth degree, friends, that plan's probably not going to run the way that we did. And if it did, it's probably the wrong thing. So, who's been to a retrospective that feels like you've done it before and nothing has changed at all? Who thinks there are a lot of things that call themselves agile that maybe aren't particularly agile? Who thinks we've branded agile things that don't provide value to our own context? Who's been to a meeting or when they sat there and said, I love this. We should do this all the time. No, okay. Have you ever walked out of a meeting and thought that was a massive waste of my time? We do not achieve anything. Well, friends, I've got to tell you, retrospectives can actually be good. They can actually work. They're going to fail a lot. There's going to be a lot of things that we say, we should do that. Note down the actions. Who's going to pick that up? Maybe we've got a friend in our team that's good at glue work. They can do that. They're great. We'll write down an action point and we'll get buy-in from somebody because we've got actions. We put them in Jira. Everything we put in Jira gets done, right? We fail at retrospectives. We fail at meetings. We fail at so many things. But actually, there is value in retrospect, in learning from stuff. But how can we learn? Do you learn from other people? Anne-Marie does, thank you. Learning to deal with people is core to our being as testers. Last year's Eurostar, Chris Nordstrom, he put the brilliant theme of software development as a social activity together. We make software for people. We are people. And we work with people who perhaps don't seem like people. Every output, every clue in what they're doing doesn't tell you that they're a person, but I guarantee you, they're a person. Woody Zell says, I've never worked with someone that wasn't a person. Now, empathy isn't something that all of us are brilliant at. I can tell here in this room, you're not all thinking wisdom, learning. Going to take some pictures of these slides today, friends. Tell my friends. I don't know what you're thinking. Some of you are giving me some non-verbal clues. A couple of nods, thumbs up from Alex. We like Alex. But knowing how people are, how they feel, what their gut says, we're testers. We've got curiosity, we've got critical thinking. We try to advocate for users. Surely we should have some sort of empathy going on. And actually working with people, we affect other people. As a leader, I've done a great job at leading people, and I've done truly terrible things. Not illegal, not mental health bad things, but I have neglected people because I made something called an assumption. This worked over here. It'll work for you too, don't worry. So, how do we get to know people? Has anyone ever heard of a communication readme? No. It's not my idea, I stole it. But it's the concept of saying, when somebody wants to communicate with me, I can say, this is what's going to alert me. This is what's going to put my back up. So, anyone ever have a manager say, quick chat? And you thought, yes. No. Have you ever felt, I wish you would stop emailing me? I have a phone, I have Teams, I have other ways. Hell, we're in the same room. How about talking to me? If we understand what makes people tick, what helps them, what feedback works with them, we've got a much better chance of actually succeeding collaboratively. And that's not going to stay the same, my friends, but if we share it and if we seek feedback on these things, we've got a better chance of actually being successful together. Now, as testers, we talk a lot about feedback. Hopefully, we get constructive feedback. We did PowerPoint karaoke last night. I feel like we just need to talk about this. We went a bit rogue, friends. Instead of just letting somebody talk about a testing topic with slides they'd never seen before, we encouraged audience participation in the most bad actor-y kind of way. Feedback that you give and how it's going to be received will change the narrative, the way that you work with people. I once received an email, and I hate receiving emails just as a general rule, where an IT manager had decided to report that I had broken something. I am a tester. But they had emailed, including the entire IT department and the company secretary, without ever having told me that I'd broken something. I didn't know. How can I know if I don't receive feedback? And what happened was, the way they had done it became perceived by me as a bit aggressive. If I came over to you the first time I said, Szilard, I've brought the whole company with me, including your boss, the people that pay your bills, do your performance. I just want to say, you broke something and cost the company some money. Did you know? How would you feel? Would you like, there's the guy I want to work with? It doesn't work. How we interact with people, how we give feedback is important. We talk about test automation gives us feedback. Has anyone ever had a test that says pass and there's nothing? No information. Does green mean go? Green means no. So, I tried with AI on a picture. Has anyone ever tried actually like putting input into AI and say, let's put something in, it's definitely going to give me a picture exactly like how I've just pictured in my mind? I wanted to get a picture of a sandcastle that has the sea rolling over it, and it will disappear as the sea basically engulfs it. This took 12 attempts. How bad am I at giving feedback to a not person to create something? The point here is, though, if we stand still, if we rest on our laurels, if we think everything that we know today is all that we know, we are going to fail. I saw a talk by a man named John Hall this weekend. It had nothing to do with testing. It had nothing to do with software development. And yet, he said one thing that was incredibly poignant to me. He said, a heart that only looks back is an unhealthy heart. A heart that looks forward is a healthy heart. Now, I've got family who are old and not mobile, and we know that that mobility is going to help keep them going. If they are going to stay still, I think sadly they're going to perish. And this analogy works in our workplace. If we just rest and we stop learning, we stop seeking feedback, we're going to perish. Like, we've had conversations today about manual testers losing out to automation testers. Has anyone heard of AI? Apparently it's going to take our jobs. Oh my gosh. We need to be up to date. We need to understand this thing is a tool, and I need to make sure that I'm not a fool. Christian Bauman came up with that term, I think, didn't he? As I close, I just want to say, we've talked about burnout a little bit, Anne-Marie did this morning. In March of this year, a tiny straw broke my back, and I was signed off work. I had anxiety, stress, and do you know what that thing was? Somebody who wasn't listening to me and relentlessly pushing and prodding because they wanted to measure a KPI. Do you want to know what the KPI was for? Test strategy adoption at enterprise level. And you know, I made something up. Have people viewed the page in Confluence? Because that obviously means that they have adopted a strategy. Because we can tell that you have opened something, that means it's real. What I would say, friends, is don't let it get to that level. This had been brewing and brewing. And sometimes when you say no, people might not listen to you. Make sure you look out for your friends. I've got good friends here that have looked out for me, and I appreciate you. And I want to make sure that you look out for yourselves as well. This community cares. We share in the pain, we share in the joy together. Please, please look after yourselves. In case you forgot what I was talking about, if we concentrate on failures, we have no opportunity for success. We must learn from what happened in those failures to achieve success. If we turn negative language into opportunity, that language changes the narrative. It changes our introduction. It opens the door to collaboration. Stay relevant. Please look after yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. And after the presentation, let's see a few questions for how much we have time for. Okay, how do you activate a call full of introverts on retro?
So, I mean, anyone who knows online retrospectives on calls with everyone off isn't the most inclusive space. I was lucky enough to work with some beautiful humans who were incredible introverts, where in a traditional stand-up setting, they had anxiety to the point where they had to leave immediately and go to the hospital. But we spoke to them. We talked about the value of what we were trying to achieve, but also how they felt. And we decided to sit down with a cup of coffee and just have a chat about things. We still had a goal and achievement, but we found a way that worked for them, a format of retrospective discussion that wasn't this high-stakes, high-pressure status update stuff that really isn't what we're trying to achieve. We just wanted to learn how things were going, if we could fix anything, and if we needed anything to change. Change the format, engage with the people, find out what works, what doesn't work, and then experiment.
Thank you. How can a retrospective be useful? What kind of things to be found and acted upon?
A retrospective is only useful if you do something with the outcomes of the session. If you do nothing, if nobody actions anything, if you learn nothing, you need to go and give yourself a half hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, however long it is, break, because there's literally no point in turning up for that session. Retrospectives are only useful when you are in a safe, non-judgmental place that actually achieves goals, people are honest, you find solutions, and you actually action and you experiment. If it isn't working, talk about it, change it, experiment. There's literally no point in just doing the same thing over and over again.
Thank you. This is an educated guess. I think this might be the last question. What's your view on including a tester embedded in a development teams in order to improve social interactions regarding failing tests?
Well, I kind of have a problem with the language failing test. If a test is actually a good test, and let's assume it is, I think that's fair to say, then probably the test hasn't failed. It's reported a failure in your code or your product. But I find the use of language is very important when you say, something's been picked up here. Can we have a chat about it? Now, if you just wind back into making sure that's actually a useful test, you've hopefully included your development team in your tests. Maybe in your plans, in your strategies, in your 3 amigos, in your pairing to actually do these things, code reviews, all those things. We should be very transparent with what we're doing, even if it's not the exact execution of those things. We should know as a team what we're aiming for, what we're covering, how we're going to do those things, what will happen if those things fail. Things like risk storming, coming ahead of the game with mitigating circumstances and having tests that will catch things earlier gives us the opportunity to make that language much simpler when we go, oh, we've caught something here. If it's just a test and everything blows up the second you report a failure, there's a much, much bigger problem at play here than the test has failed. Talk to your people and involve people in testing. Testing is for everybody, because quality is everyone's responsibility.
So my guess was correct. That was the last question. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Armstrong. Thank you very much.